All right, everybody, so welcome back. And we do have a very special guest in our studio this morning. And that is the Minister of Labour, Mr. Leroy Baptiste. Of course, he's a former president of the Public Services Association. But I suspect once a trade unionist, always a trade unionist. I saw the gentleman in the newspaper over the past few hours and he's smiling, a big, broad smile. Of course, the 10% is seen as a victory for workers, a day to celebrate and restore the negotiation process. So, Mr. Baptiste, thank you very much for coming this morning. The smile continues, eh?
Thank you, and good morning to you. Good morning to your viewers. Good morning.
Let's talk a little bit about this 10%, because I see where the president of the Public Services Association, she is ready to begin these negotiations, and she's hoping that these negotiations are settled by Christmas. Your perspective on that?
Well, I think the president of the PSA, having a fiduciary responsibility for members, I think that's a desirable goal, and she would like to get it going, and I wish her the best. Mm-hmm. I think the workers, let me just say I'm proud to be part of a cabinet that once and for all is adopting a people-centered approach. The cabinet would have agreed to a workers' agenda, and our Honourable Prime Minister, whenever she speaks, she says one thing, promise made, promise kept. And a commitment was given to the workers, civil servants, that the starting offer would be at 10%. And that has now come to fruition. The collective bargaining process will begin. And I wish the best for the workers. They have really held out for quite a while to seek some kind of social justice, something that our country is built upon constitutionally. We commit to the principles of social justice, that the operations of the economic system should subserve the common good. And how that is reflected, Marlon, is always how we treat our workers.
Yeah.
And I have the responsibility as the Minister of Labour to ensure that those principles are adhered to ensure that we have an enabling environment that is premised upon fairness and equity.
So you do see this as a victory for the working class?
Of course. It is a victory for the working class. What was previously, how they were treated previously, Marlon, was just unfair.
Yeah.
You recall it. And
you see it as an attempt to restore the negotiation process.
Of course. It was take it or leave it. You remember that? You take it or leave it. We had two ministers of finance, but the former minister of finance, he's the one who laughed at workers and would tell you, take it or leave it. They started with an insulting 2% over 8 years. That's what they offered workers to start with. 0.001 and then 0.0001. 3 years and 5 years. Mm-hmm. Workers had to protest. Then it came to 4% over 6 years. And what was worse, they altered the formula for settlement of negotiations by refusing to consolidate the cost of living and all that, those type of things. I want to assure you that this government was given a commitment to the workers' agenda to restore collective bargaining.
Yes.
And to treat workers with dignity and respect.
As a former president of the Public Services Association, and of course you know the issues, you know the challenges of public servants in Trinidad and Tobago, as we speak about this 10%, because when we speak about 10%, we just speak about the percentage, and sometimes I don't know if that information resonates to the wider population. So how do you see this 10% intimately affecting public servants and impacting on them positively?
Well, Um, it's a sad state of affairs, and I'm saying this, I'm not engaging in hyperbole.
Yes.
You had a situation where workers we are talking about 2013 and we're now in 2025.
Right.
For the last 12 years, they actually had no increase at all. And then you're speaking about the rise in cost of living. The workers, the public officers are literally existing as the working poor. They are unable to make ends meet. This here is an attempt to, one of the principles that this government adhere to is decent work and trying to achieve what we call a living wage. So this is a step in the right direction. It's an attempt to help close that gap between the state of being unable to take care of themselves with outdated wages and trying to achieve the living wage.
Yeah.
That 10% will go a long way to close that gap.
But, you know, the narrative has already been put out there. How is the government going to afford this? Because the last administration would have said that this would have cost the country a lot of money to pay public servants this kind of increase. How does this administration intend to pay public servants?
Well, let me just say that's why they are the last administration.
Yeah.
They weren't able to do the job, Marlon. They were simply unable to do the job. You would have, listen, I know you would have listened to the budget. And there was a different tone. We are accustomed being, when a budget is being read, people are fearful. We had a situation where a budget is being read, and you were looking forward to something optimistic. This government will and has embarked upon innovative mechanisms to achieve the common good. As you know, the Prime Minister would have said it nicely, and it was also echoed by the Minister of Finance. We're going to be fair. A fair approach. I always said when I had a different hat, I would say it's not where the money coming from, it's what the money spending on. And I assure you, the money that we make in this country, we have enough. It's just where we spend it on. This government ensure that there's fairness, there's balance. Yes? So you would have seen that reflected in the budget, so that I assure you, we have the ability, what we have promised, we will keep it.
Did the last administration offer 9%?
That is so unfortunate. The last administration at no point in time, for the period 2014 to 16 and 17 to 19, no, they did not offer 9%. It was a matter of what went to court. When there was a breakdown, when the last administration sent the matter to the court, they that sent it. It was for 4%. Yes? On the eve of election, Marlon, the last administration, not for the period 2014 to 2019, for the period 2020 to 2022, which was never in contention, the PSA and public servants at no point in time were engaging in negotiating that period. The last administration offered to the unions who had signed the 4% that they will give them for 2020 to 22 an additional 5%. So that's a 9-year period we're talking about here now, which was never a period under negotiations. Yeah. Yes? So that 9% people are speaking about, it is for 2014 to 2022.
Yes.
But the 10% we are speaking about is as compared with that 6-year period, 2014 to 2019, when the government had offered that, the then government would have only offered 4%.
Yeah.
And I want to stress that not just 4%. They took away from the workers their COLA. They took it away. So it was really a complete disrespect and undermine the whole collective bargaining process during that last negotiating period.
What about the unions that would have accepted the 4%?
Well, they accepted it.
Yeah, so that's it for them.
No, they accepted it.
Yeah.
I want to leave it at that. I don't want to at all engage in it.
Yes.
But I know that they accepted it.
Yeah.
All right? As you know, you always have choices to
Yes.
make. But so they accepted it.
All right. I want to speak a little bit about a few things that remain a concern to this administration and also to your former colleagues in the trade union movement, and that is the issue of contract labor and also the issue of vacancies. According to the Prime Minister, thousands of vacancies. Beautiful. What about that? Is there any plan? Of course, there has to be a plan.
Well, you know, the Honourable Prime Minister, again, in her commitment to decent work, you know, we speak about the whole notion of this kind of piecemeal make-up work. And one of the things in trying to treat with workers and to ensure that we lift their standard of living is to give them decent work. Sometimes we call it real work, real jobs for real people. That is what the Prime Minister is seeking to achieve. What better way to achieve it where we have well-defined jobs? And the well-defined jobs is one of the problems we have had over the years is, for God knows whatever reason, they have just refused to fill vacancies within the public service. And you create a situation where they then bad talk or ill speak the public service and say, hey, they're underperforming, that they are inefficient.
Yes.
When people, we have 70%, more than half of the positions in the public service, they're vacant. So what the Prime Minister would have committed to would have been, and she mentioned it, at least there are over 20,000 positions. We have to make them available for our citizens. Because when someone gets a job there, it's well defined, it is a job. And that is one of the commitment to fill those vacancies. But more than that, the Minister of Finance would have spoke to the whole issue of a job evaluation exercise. And in that exercise, one of the things that they would be looking to do is where there are contracted positions in the open service, because the workers' agenda, we clearly state a position, the non-proliferation of contract jobs. We want to cut down that because the contract workers are being exploited too. They are unable to plan and organize their lives because they go to the bank and they have a start date and an end date, and that is creating problems for them. So one of the commitments that would have been given is that when we do the job, when they complete that exercise, in the public service, there are standardized contracted positions and there are non-standardized contracted positions. 40% of the standardized position will be absorbed in the public service. So you would, instead of having person working on contract, they become public officers. And 23% of the non-standardized will be absorbed in the public service. So again, 63% of our contract workers will have an opportunity to have a permanent job. And that's the commitment given to give people more decent, predictable jobs, sustainable jobs, so that they could plan and organize their lives.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit. Another concern of the trade union movement is the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act.
Yes.
Of course, the OWTU continues to speak about strengthening that act. According to the OWTU, employers had a field day with workers in this country. They shut down today and open up the same business with another company under another name tomorrow. Is this going to be a priority of this administration?
Definitely. Alan, I'm pleased to say that, again, the Ministry of Labour, our remit really is to harmonize the industrial relation environment, to stabilize it, because you want to create an enabling environment for economic growth and development. Yeah. So that's our responsibility. Part and parcel of that is to engage with our stakeholders, but the employers and the union and to bring about that kind of harmonization. We have been having those discussions, and that with a clear objective to treat with the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act to make sure it's more fair and it's equitable, and not to close those loopholes that, yes, employers have jumped through to escape their responsibilities to workers. So I assure you that extensive consultation we have engaged in that will be heading to the Parliament to be addressed. Yes?
I want to speak a little bit because we have been speaking, and my earlier speaker, we were speaking about this, about some of the goodies in the budget really trickling down to the working class and to everybody in Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, you do have things such as the electricity surcharge for commercial industrial clients, landlord business surcharge, and there may be a concern that these increases may be inimical, be punitive to the common man out there. I see where the finance minister is saying, well, here's what the citizenry needs to push back if they believe that these benefits are not going to be getting to them. How does government deal with a situation like that?
Well, the fact that we are the government, it gives us an opportunity to deal with it. And I assure you, there's no intention to just sit idly by and allow the citizenry to be exploited.
Yeah.
But let me start by saying, we will be meeting as we continue to meet. I attended the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, their post-budget analysis. And I think they were extremely enthused and they like the budget. And we will be speaking to our business class to be part and parcel of resolving this country's issue. We have no choice but to transform this country.
Yeah. So is it safe to say that certain increases, and let's speak specifically about the electricity surcharge for commercial and industrial clients, I suspect this may have an impact, let's say, on the manufacturing sector, yes. But these things you feel shouldn't be seen as punitive?
No. They understand that we are talking about fear. It's F-A-I-R. You know, they have the inbred days. Fear was F-E-A-R. Now it's F-A-I-R. And that fairness, the business community, we know will join us to share in the burden of transformation. Because that's what we're asking them, to share in the burden of transformation. They could assist, they could help. You know, it's all of our country. This country constitutionally speaks to social justice. So we would ask them to participate in that process. And to me, the signals are clear. We will have our partners in the business community that will not seek to simply pass the buck on to because the government, we will always engage them and try to encourage them to do otherwise.
Yeah,
yes.
Mr. Minister, I just have a few seconds again. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on before you leave us this morning?
Well, again, just to say that for labor, I would quickly just mention that this government has kept its word. They've made commitments, including, as you know, the repeal of saved thousands of jobs in terms of the public service by the repealing of the TTRs, saved thousands of jobs, over 5,000 jobs from WASA, because the government was hell-bent again to send home persons at WASA. NIB, we kept our word with the NIB workers, and they have, in fact, enjoyed the fruits of the collective bargaining process, over $100 million for the NIB workers. I have reduced super gasoline. That's a big deal for workers. $50 on average every time you go to the pump. So this government will continue to be people-centered under the leadership of the Honourable Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bisesa. I assure workers
Yeah.
that we are here to serve the interests of all, but moreover to ensure that workers are treated fairly and equitably within our society.
Yeah, Madam Producer, allow me to steal 1 more minute. It's not very often that I get the Minister of Labour here, so I have to use this opportunity. I want to, on that issue of the TTRA, yes, and you and your union, yes, were very vehement against the TTRA. The last administration felt, well, here's what, it was an attempt to tighten up things in order to address certain leakages and so on that are happening in the system. This administration has spoken about, well, here's what, you all are going to fix the BIR, as it were, and address certain leakages. How has that process gone, and is that a mechanism enough to address the leakages and gather as much funds as possible?
It's gone great. Let me be clear, TTRA, there's no research that ever indicated that a notional TTH revenue authority would have, yes, increased any revenue. There's no research to that effect. As a matter of fact, the research says quite the opposite. What we had was a government that would have been committed to undermining public officers. Again, we had a situation there where more than 60% of there were 60% vacancies in BIR. And then they're talking about they are inefficient. They simply didn't have the capacity. I want to assure you that right now this government is engaged in filling vacancies, engaged in ensuring that all the technology is in fact put in place for BIR and customs, training and development of the workers to ensure that they're first class by all the benchmarking processes, so that we are now enabling BIR and customs to do what they were constitutionally set up to do, to, yes, efficiently treat with the collection of revenue on behalf of the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is going fine, Marlon, I want to assure you. A lot of work is happening right now. It's being transformed into what it ought to be in the first place. The arm of the government to collect revenue efficiently and effectively on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah. Mr. Minister, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. This is the first time we have spoken as you as a minister, right? But sure, it's always good to get your perspective on a number of things. Please don't be a stranger, Mr. Minister. We hope to speak with you sometime in the near future. But sure, bye for now, sure, and we wish you all the best in your post. Yeah.
Thank you, Marlon, and thanks. Pleasant morning to you.
Yes. All right, everybody. So we are going to a very short break. We do have this for you. It's an image of the beauty of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, it's from Melville Dunmore. Melville, good morning.